Hi, my name is Ken Moore. I'm with QED Testing. Today is April 8th, 2008. We're here at Ilwaco Junior Senior High. Today we're going to be doing some window testing. It's a forensic test, and today we're going to be doing the ASTM E1105 per the AMA document 50202. We're just going to try and differentiate between the wall and the window assembly today to figure out what's leaking. Today we'll be using the Druck DPI 705 digital pressure indicator. This is a digital manometer. It is the primary instrument we're going to be using today. As you can see, it is accurate, plus or minus 0.1% of full scale. It is also a NIST traceable instrument, which is the National Institute of Science and Technology. It is calibrated. We're also using, to monitor the time today, a NIST traceable VWR timer. Today we're using a variable frequency drive to run our blower unit. This is a 220 blower. It's a regenerative blower, so it gets plenty of extraneous air out of the way if you need that. It moves high volume and high pressure. This is the inlet hose that is attached to the plenum here. And the plenum is skinned with 12 mil isinglass so that we can see through it and see any leakage going on. This tube here is a secondary tap. This tube is monitoring the pressure inside the chamber. This tube is hooked to the Druck DPI 705 digital manometer. And so what that does is it monitors the pressure differential from the inside of the chamber to the outside of the chamber. This is our spray rack assembly. It's a 4-foot by 4-foot rack assembly. As you can see on each spray nozzle, which is right here, you see a gauge that is directly behind it. So it's pretty accurate, and it's really easy to see what the gauge reads, and so you can have real-time pressure at each nozzle assembly. It's a calibrated spray assembly. It's calibrated at 5.6 gallons per minute, and you can see the fire hose here is running down and is connected to our pump assembly, and the pump is run by these two big barrels here, which give us our recharge rate so that we make sure we have plenty of head pressure, and our pressure assembly stays at the same pressure during the test. The exterior isolation per the AMA 50202B is we're trying to take out as much of the window assembly as possible so that we're just testing the perimeter interface. We are also, as we spoke about inside, taking out the pan assembly. So I taped off the front edge of this pan as well as the back side of the pan on the interior side. This isolation is done completely all the way around the frame. And then on the top sides of the tape here, I have a little curtain so that kills most of the water coming down the face of the isolation. Today we're going to be doing the ASTM E1105 per the AMA 50202. Our first test today will be the 50202B test. In that test, we do have the window itself isolated. We also have the pan assembly isolated, and the reason for that being that the pan is totally open to the exterior side of the building, and so any water that does fall into that pan will come in. So we wanted to differentiate the pan as well as the window from the wall assembly. Today's test will be a cyclic test. Cyclic test will be 3 intervals of 5 minutes of pressure. Between each of those 5 minutes of pressure is a 1-minute relax session with 0 pressure. So making the entire test about 18 minutes. We just started the water, and it looks like it equalized. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the blower. definitely growing. The water's growing out of that left-hand side.
Also looking along the phone line to see if there's anything random happening along the fan.
So our first leak was seen at 1 minute into the first cycle on the left-hand side of the window underneath the main frame.
Into cycle 1. Starting relapse. 1 minute.
I think I can see some water drops back between the flashing and the jam framing. It's really hard to see, so we're going to have to, at the end of the test, if it doesn't grow, we'll take some Littman's paper and stick it back between the flashing and the jam framing to see if it is wet. But it looks like there's some drop or two back there.
We also have leakage underneath the sill pan, right at about 6 inches, 8 inches to the left, and underneath the mullion. So what we're seeing here is water that's backing out of the back pan. We knew that was going to happen. That's why we taped that pan off in the first place, because it's not sealed. And so there is water getting into the pan system, and it's backing up over that and getting through our tape and then down onto the shim and then out onto the sill.
Into cycle 2.
So we're at the end of cycle 2. In the relax period, we have one more pressure cycle to go. We've seen water backing up out of the pan system coming through our tape, and we also saw water at the left-hand side underneath the left-hand jam between the framing and the window frame. Could be out of the pan, could be out of the out of the shim. So.
And we are having moisture backing up past your tape too.
Yeah.
Starting cycle 3.
Starting cycle 3. Test 1 is complete, and we've had several instances of water penetration through the perimeter interface. So we're going to go ahead and cut the plenum and do a few more tests to make sure we've seen all the spots. So we'll probably use some Littman's paper to go back in and see if the jam is wet, or at the head it looks like there might be a spot as well. All right. So water underneath the pan system. Using Littman's paper, it's easy to see how wet it really is. And I'm just barely touching it. I mean, really, it's... So this is going to be the second test. And the second test, we exposed the back pan region that we had taped off in the first test. I also exposed the front of the pan. The window isolation is still in place, so we're going to leave that up for this test. And since we did see a small amount of water coming out of the back pan, probably won't be a very long test. At the back pan, at the sill pan region, on the end dams, they are not welded. So they're not a full continuous weld. So we were seeing water seeping out of the end dams and out onto the peel and stick, right on the sill. So that would be like right there, coming out, right onto the peel and stick there. At the right hand corner as well, right there. 50202B, we're just going to test the same test as we did before, only with the pan region exposed. You see the water right on top of the pan, right there. That side is filling up quicker. I want to kill the water, kill the test. We have a lot of water coming out on this side through the end dam, and it's also spilling over the pan.
Over now, you can start seeing it all along.
Right. It's all along the pan region here, and spilling out onto the peel and stick, and then running out onto the sill. So we wanted to go ahead and terminate the test early, so that way we can get a window test and try and differentiate. And test number 3, we're going to be performing the AMA 50202A. Instead of taping out the perimeter interface around the entire window on the jambs and head, since we didn't see any water coming in there, we only saw water at the pan and sill level. I'm not going to re-isolate, but we did remove the isolation from the window to expose the window. We also put tape back on the back pan so that it is now sealed off. Since we had such aggressive failure, we didn't want to contaminate our test with the water that's already there. However, there is water underneath the frame all the way to the front side that we can't get out. We tried with a heat gun to draw it out, but there's just too much water under there. So we noted that. So basically on this test, we're going to be looking for any leaks that are coming through gasketing, glazing, interlock regions, mullions, or locking hardware. Yeah, there's also water. There's also water that's coming in on that screw hole penetration right here. It's back in there. Yeah. I can see water back there, right there. Sure. Time. So 6 inches up, right at screw hole level. We have water coming in. We have ingress coming down this jamb, so that means it's getting into the frame, and right where that screw is going through, it's coming in all the way past the flashing into the rough framing. Oh yeah, that's some percolation there. And I expected from inside. Yeah, and I expected to see that since these are not plumb, level, or square, and they're really racked. That the interlock region is not seating properly. The only other thing that we wouldn't see is if it's draining into that mullion and then draining down into the pan.
Would the pan ultimately be compromised though with water coming in there?
Not that that matters because the pan's not sealed on the backside or at the ends. Third cycle, correct. End of cycle 3. I want to see.
something you can shove it in there with?
Yeah.
So how do you wait it?
Ooh, dry. During the test, we saw a lot more water coming out the right-hand side underneath the pan system. The pan system is not sealed at the ends. It's just folded over and not crimped or soldered. So we thought that water may be coming through the fastener penetrations into the rough framing. But it's not on this side, but it could be on the front side of the foam, running down the front side of the foam into the pan system. But since the pan system's not sealed, it's running out onto the interior side of the sill system right on top of the peel and stick. So that's what we've seen, because we saw a lot more water coming in underneath the right-hand side, and that would be typical, especially how this is shimmed. The window is bowing down on each side, and that's why you're seeing the frame cracks, and that's why you're seeing the water traveling down the right-hand side. We also saw water at the interlock region percolating, but it was not a formal failure. It's just some ingress. We also saw water coming down the frame from a frame to main frame connection. I don't know if you can see, but it was right here. Yeah, from the frame to main frame connection right there. It was traveling down and then entering here, and that's where it's supposed to go. And then it travels down the inside of the frame and then weeps out. But we also have to remember there's also a screw hole penetration 6 inches up on the right hand side that has a cap on it, but it's not sealed, and that fastener penetration goes all the way into the rough framing. So it could be traveling on that screw and then traveling down into the pan, but we also have to remember that the pan's not sealed. So I think that's our point of entry. We've proved now that the window passed, but the perimeter interface adjacent wall assembly tie-in failed, especially at the pan system, which is not sealed at the back angle, or it's not sealed from the front side, and it's not sealed at the end ends, and that's where we're seeing a lot of our leakage. Okay, on this test of specimen 2, since it does have a cracked frame, we're going to be doing a sill trough test only. We're going to be filling up the sill track here all the way to these marks I've made, which are 0.77 inches. And that's what we're testing to today is 4 PSF. I've gone ahead and taped over the weep holes so that the water can't drain out. So we're going to fill that up and wait 15 minutes and see what happens. We're also going to watch this crack here, and we're also going to watch to see if we see any blue dye coming out of around the pan system and out onto the sill membrane.
Want me to start the timer?
Start it now. We're 5 minutes and 13 seconds into the sill trough test. Sill trough test, we're seeing water coming through the crack, obviously, filling up into the pan. And we're just trying to see if there's any more water coming down here on the sill. Now we're 8 minutes into the sill trough test. You can see the level has gone down slightly from my mark there. You can see the water coming through the crack in the frame assembly. There's also a crack in the bottom of the sill trough assembly, so it's leaking through there as well. We're getting water into the pan assembly, and haven't seen any water coming out the end dam yet. So the test is completed now. 15 minutes has gone by, and we've seen failure through the crack, obviously in the main frame, into the sill pan, and we've also seen failure at the sill pan leaking out onto the sill area. So we know that end dam is not sealed. So we did have a failure of our sill trough test, specimen 2. Okay, this is specimen number 3, test number 5 for today. The first test we're going to be doing is the 50202B AMA test. And we have the window isolated out, so the only thing getting wet in this test is the perimeter interface joint. The back pan is not taped off, and so we should be ready to go. It's already bubbling over here, look at that. It's just racing in there. I guess we get a photo of it and turn it off. 5 seconds. Kill it. We're going to contaminate all of our tests. All right, post-test number 5 on specimen 3. Post-test diagnostics revealed there's water behind the flashing, next to the rough framing, about 2 or 3 inches up on the left-hand side. You can see as I'm putting Littman's paper in there, it's flashing, so there's water in there. Okay, test 6, specimen 3. This is the second test for the specimen. During this test, we're going to be testing the mullion assembly as well as the perimeter interface. We cut the caulking on the exterior side of the isolation to allow water to penetrate into the mullion system. On the back side here, or inside I guess, I taped off the pan assembly so that hopefully we won't overflow the back pan. We can get our test off. So this is the test of the mullion assembly, and also the perimeter interface is exposed. What Eric's doing right now on specimen 3 on the exterior side of the building is he is exposing the mullion. So he is cutting the exterior isolation of the window to expose the mullion only. So our next test, which will be test 6, will be of the exposed mullion as well as the perimeter caulking issues that we already just saw. I guess that didn't work, did it? Really coming in that left-hand side, right-hand side of the exterior. So 53 seconds into test 6, we terminated the test due to excessive water entry on the left-hand side through the pan system. Pan is full, pan is not sealed on the left-hand side, and so it's running out aggressively. Okay, this is specimen 3, test 3 for specimen 3, and we're going to be testing the same thing we just tested. Mullions are exposed, a window is isolated, caulking is exposed, but now we put a curtain over the sill flashing and we tape the back pan off. So we're going to see if we can get a test off and test that mullion on test 7, specimen 3. Yeah, but the window's still taped off. The only thing that's exposed is the mullion. Yeah, and it's not, I don't see anything.
This is a T-clasp or a U-clasp in there that's gripping either side of that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a leak, like where I've seen them, is I've seen them right at that seam, right
Yeah.
at the flap.
Yeah, usually there and then right there at the miters.
Yeah.
So test 7, specimen 3, test 3 for specimen 3. We didn't see any instance of water penetration at the interior side of the mullion cap. We did see water at the left-hand side underneath the pan assembly again, but that was probably due to mostly extraneous water that came out of the pan in test 6. So we didn't see any water on the front side. Post-test for specimen 3, we're going to pull the mullion caps and make sure that there's no water in there. Ingress frame to main frame, left hands, single hung, upper right hand corner. Not a failure, just ingress. Ingress returned. What's that? Ingress returned. Okay, so at the end of test 8, we did not have any water penetration through the window assembly itself. The only water we saw was underneath the pan assembly, which we know is bad. So we can safely say that the window passed. However, the integration failed pretty aggressively, as you can see. Test 9 on specimen 1. We're going to be performing the 50202. It's a full-on assembly test. We removed the exterior isolation so that we can get a full test on the window. On the interior side of the window, we did tape off the back pan assembly. This pan is just like the rest of the pans that we've seen today. They are not sealed at either end. This morning when we came in, we saw water underneath the pan system from overnight rain. So we just took that out of the equation by taping off the back pan. On the front pan, we're going to put a small curtain to see if we can get a test on just the window assembly, and then we'll watch the back pan fail later on. So. That's just coming through the pan assembly.
That's what that is.
That back pan assembly is full,
Yes.
and it's just pushing the water up there out of our elastomeric tape. Test number 9 is complete. We didn't have any instance of water penetration through the product itself, the manufactured product. We did have water coming in at the sill level at the pan and overflowing onto the sill itself. So that's it. Post-test, just decided we'd pull this mole cap and see if we see any water after the mullion test and window test on specimen 3. And as you can see, it's dry as a bone. There's no water in there. No water. It's dry as a bone. Okay. You can see the back pan here is full of water. Well, you can see that. And you can also see over here on the left-hand side, I'm sure, if you put it in here to the, look, it's all the way up to the top, failing out to the bottom. Wow.
Wow.
So, a lot of water.